Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Learn Languages HD audio podcast. We'd love to have you with us. Make sure to learn something new today and expand your horizons for a little bit. Recently, I have seen an interesting movie, and it's called Blade Runner. To me, there was something very special about it, and that's why I decided to have it as a subtopic of today's episode. This one is all about, this one is all futuristic. Our topic for today would be future world and how actions of the mankind could affect the way our planet and our environment and our living would be in the future. Language wise, we would also cover conditional sentences, which is a drama structure that many students, for some reason, find difficult to understand at first, but it's something that has but it's a grammar structure that has numerous applications, both in spoken and written communication in English. So I believe it's very necessary to learn it sooner or later. So at some point during this episode, we will quickly explain this concept and we would use it to make a couple of sentences. So when I said the Blade Runner, you may have wondered, what is that actually? Because that's the question that I asked myself too when a friend recommended me to watch this movie. Well, Blade Runner is a job, is an occupation, is a career of the future, as the directors and creators of this movie defined it. So the the Blade Runner is like a police detective that is running and chasing replicants. And the replicants are the humans of the future. They are genetically modified individuals, which at the point where this action takes place, don't differ a lot from regular people. And it takes long examinations and different sorts of tests to determine whether a person is a replicant or not. And the companies that are producing them are actually doing their best to remove that difference, to make them as similar to humans as possible. And they kind of succeeded in that because in the first movie, we get to meet a replicant that was very hard to spot. It was very hard to determine that she actually is not the real human being. So there are two Blade Runner movies, one created in 1982, and there the main actor is a Blade Runner, and he's brought to the planet to run and find for replicants that are actually criminals, that have committed various crimes, and that authorities considered a threat to the world. At that point, replicants had one and only role in the society, and that was the role of slaves. They lived on a different planet from Earth, and they were used as a socially approved slaves to the people of those days. While the Blade Runner is hunting them, he actually meets experiences that would change his lifetime forever and his future forever. In the second movie, which was filmed in 2017 and is called Blade Runner 2049, a new young Blade Runner, K, discovers a long buried and well protected secret that actually leads him to the former Blade Runner from the first episode, Rick Deckard, who has gone missing for 30 years. So, second movie actually is the story that happens 30 years later from the first part. What was striking to me when it comes to this movie is that when I saw it first time, I sort of thought, wow, this may be a sci-fi in the moment. Like when the first one was created, it's 1982. Maybe that's how they perceive the future, and I actually recognize some of the elements of their environment. I could see that in our days, and maybe something that was sci-fi then and that is sci-fi now would actually come alive and real in the future. What was striking is that it's always dark. They're riding they're riding through the air. They have flying cars. Everything works and looks different, but it still has very striking similarities to the world we're living in. And this movie brought me to thinking about how climate change and how our actions as people actually are changing the environment and changing the future that we live in. For a young individual, many studies that I have read talking about the predictions for our future are very frightening. And the fact that changes in our weather patterns are already so visible, and maybe on the European continent, not as much as those are on the Asian continent or some other countries worldwide, really got me to the point that maybe we are not talking about it enough. So we have issues with COVID, we have issues with politics worldwide, and there are many other things that are certainly categorized as priorities of the mankind at the moment, and let's say problems of the highest priority to be solved. But if we tend to be forgetting these very crucial moments, this very ongoing and dramatic problem that's been going on for years, and do nothing about it on a daily basis, where that's going to lead us. So that's the power, and those are the questions that this movie opened to me. And I thought that it might be useful to talk about the climate change and to talk about how science and all the achievements that we have today can actually help with the situation we live in. I believe, as a young individual, that young people are those that actually hold a lot of responsibility at the moment, although we believe that as teenagers or young grown-ups, we don't really have much of the power to change anything. Or maybe even as parents, we don't believe that we can influence the ongoing situations that got to be worrisome. And I believe that in developed countries, these topics are even more prioritized than in the countries that are developing. So here goes the list of the activities one can take every day to help fight this global crisis, and maybe we could send the broader message that whatever crisis and whatever happens, whether it is climate change or problems with COVID or whatever problems we may have in our personal lives, realize that it has something to do with us and our daily lives. Nothing can actually be solved. So there is the term that is called carbon footprint. And when I first got to know about it, it taught me that carbon footprint nationwide is calculated from the data of individuals. So we can calculate carbon footprint personally or on the basis of our family or on our community, like school community, or on our city. It can be calculated on various different levels, but it's nothing else than a sum of all of our actions and interactions, if you can get what I'm saying. And that's why the first advice actually tells, and one of the components, one of the aspects that is used in the calculation of one's carbon footprint is their energy consumption. So the first advice I have here is that we should use energy wisely. And by doing that, we're not only saving planet, but we're also saving money too. And there is a fact that Canada is the top per capita, so per capita means per person, per a citizen, energy consumer in the world. And it's believed that if we become more energy efficient, we would not only be polluting less around, but we would also be saving a lot on our budget. And believe it or not, it can be done by making some very, very tiny changes. And when you incorporate that and really stay persistent with it, it can add up and create very big difference. So one of the things you can do is to actually install a programmable thermostat at your home. You could also swap your gas stove for an electric stove, and it will also lower the indoor air pollution. You can unplug computers, TVs, chargers, and all the other electronic devices when you're not specifically using them. You can wash clothes in cold water instead of hot water, and you can hang dry your clothes when you can, and when you cannot, you can use different dryer products that are not electric. A little bit extra on clothes washing would be that leaving out the chemicals like detergents and different soaps, different smelly soaps would actually not only be beneficial to the planet and to the ecosystem, but would be also beneficial to one's health because the chemicals that are contained in those products go into your breathing system, into your lungs, and could severely damage your health. When you're buying new household appliances, you can take a look into their energy labels and try to find some that are labeled Energy Star or eco-friendly. You could also work on the windows and on doors at your apartment or your house to prevent heat actually from going out of your place and try to keep it as warm as possible in the winter by spending less on the heating system. And if you really take care of the quality of your windows and doors in your household, you would be also spending less in the summertime for cooling system. Take a look at energy efficient light bulbs and get a home or a workplace energy audit to identify where you can make the most energy saving gains. Another option, if applicable, if possible, is to try to go renewable with your energy sources. I've seen that recently that in my country, many households have started implementing the solar panels on top of their roofs, and the fact that that energy is accumulating, it is quite of an investment at the beginning, but over a longer period of time, it would definitely give you a lot of benefits money-wise. If you don't really have a lot of information on the renewable energy sources and the way you can implement it and use it, there are many resources online where you can also be reading some stories from the people who had experienced it and there find inspiration for yourself. Believe it or not, our eating habits also affect planet largely, and those decisions that we make daily do not affect our health only in a hormonal way, like whether you're eating a lot of carbohydrates at that moment or you're eating something with a lot of protein, but they also affect they also affect your health on a larger scale, let's say. So what you can do to make your diet more climate stable and more eco-friendly is to eat more meat-free meals. So to try to go I don't say that you should go vegan or vegetarian, but you should try to incorporate as much of plant-based diet as possible and as much as you like. And it will also help your internal health a lot. You could try buying organic products and local products whenever possible. I believe that COVID situation really taught us that we should rely as much as possible on the local food producers and generally on the local producers of everything that's available and using our native resources instead of importing lower class products from the other countries. We shouldn't be wasting food. And that's a huge problem worldwide that there are many campaigns that are trying to solve it for many years that while in some countries people are dying out of hunger, in some countries there is so much of the food waste produced. And there are even greater concerns when it comes to that waste. It's not that only we waste our money and our resources, but it's very important to take care of how we store that kind of waste, because if we do that effectively, it doesn't have to be that hazardous. And another great advice is to grow our own food. In my country, there are a lot of agricultural resources and households. I did experience and saw what it is to create your and to plant your own food. And it's not only that it's healthy in all possible ways, but it's also really rewarding and satisfying. And last but not least is that we should be having climate conversations. And young people especially should feel like that should feel like those topics are natural and normal, and that those topics are supposed to be brought up in our day-to-day conversation with people, with friends, with peers, with in school, wherever possible. And that shouldn't be worrisome conversation. It should be something that inspires and moves us, because we will be sharing same ideas and trying to. You don't even have to be engaging. We would be sharing same ideas, same goals, and same perspectives, and therefore we could be contributing on the variety of levels. Not to mention that by another great idea that could be implemented, that you can create a club, for example, and one example is green commute, so that you can have a bicycle club or a walking club, and that you can try to reduce your own personal carbon footprint by walking to school, walking to work, or maybe just riding your bike. And you can make yourself healthier mentally, physically, and also you will be doing something for a greater good. Since we mentioned conversations, and since I told you that this topic is quite viral worldwide, and it should be even more, and I hope and believe that it's gonna get more present in the future, I'm here to present conditionals as well. Especially if you're a student, there is a high possibility that at one point or another you will be writing certain essays or comments on this topic. I got it on my TOEFL examination. And when I was practicing for ACTs, I also encountered many times to write something about ecology or sustainability, eco-friendliness, or something like that. So conditional sentences are hypothetical sentences, and there are 4 different types of it. But we don't say first, second, third, and fourth, but we say 0, first, second, and third conditional. Each of those is formed differently and is used in a different situation. And 0 conditional is something that you use when you want to state a fact, scientific fact that is generally true. Something like as present simple. You use it for general truth and events that are always like that. And it's formed with present simple and present simple. So you have first sentence and second sentence. And in both of those, we say it if clause and regular clause. And in both clauses, you use present simple tense. For example, if you stand in the rain, you get wet. If you heat ice, it melts. Always true, generally true. It reminds you of present simple, and that's why you use present simple in both if clause and subordinate clause. When it comes to first conditional, it's used for possible situations in the future when you're predicting a likely result in the future, and that's why I thought it's appropriate to use it when we are talking about future world and climate change. For example, this one we form with present simple, but in present simple in the if clause. But in the subordinate clause, you don't use present simple, rather you use will plus verb, so you use future simple tense. For example, if it rains, we will cancel the trip. If you study, you will pass the exam. So the likely result of the actions. Second conditional would be used for hypothetical or unlikely situations. The people usually mixed up these two, because first conditional is used for possible situations in the future, predictable outcomes, while second conditional is completely hypothetical and unreal or improbable situations in the future. It still could happen, but the possibility is quite low. And we form it with past simple and if clause and would plus verb. in the subordinate clause. So if I won the lottery, I would travel a lot. Or if they sold their house, they would be rich. If they created engineered humans, they would look completely different from us. Something like that. So if you want to engage in conversations that are predictive, that are hypothetical, I believe that you can be using conditionals quite a lot, and that you will tie the certain condition, and the result, which can be always true, probable, or improbable, depending on your point. So hope you learned something today. Hope you got inspired once again. And I really hope that we could see you in another episode. There are more interesting topics yet to come, and hope you will stay with us. Have a good day, and thank you. Bye-bye.